Hey everyone, Ben Reno here again, and what I want to talk to you guys about today is my Sony Xperia Z3V for Verizon. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of background about this device, I wanted to wait and see what was coming out in the fall. BlackBerry was announcing a new device, Google was coming out with their new Nexus products, and Microsoft was even launching their new Lumia products. So I had just broken my Nokia Lumia icon, and just to get sort of a tape over solution until I could see what other companies were coming out with, I bought this. And it was a good price, so I went with it. And I used it for a few months. I used it for September and October until I finally got a new phone, and I have a lot to say about it. So let me just start out with, let's talk about the screen quality. So this is running a 5.3 inch 1080p IPS display. And I think to really explain what I feel about this technology, I need to compare it to my current phone, and I'll show you guys what I mean. Right, now as for me, I'm normally used to using OLED phones. For the majority of the last year, I've been using phones with OLED displays. Now, OLED displays have deeper blacks, and they have more vibrant colors and more contrast when it comes to different sort of colors. There's more range there. And seeing as how I was going from using a Nokia Lumia Icon to a Z3V, I was really disappointed with the screen quality in the Z3V. And let me just show you guys what I mean. Alright, so here's a pretty good comparison here. So I have the Nokia Lumia Icon just on automatic brightness, and we're in a fairly dark environment. And I've got the Xperia Z3V on max brightness. Now, you see the difference between these two displays. The one on the Lumia Icon definitely has much more life to it. It seems much brighter, even though I don't really have the settings that high. And then when you look at the Z3V, the photo just looks dead. It looks lifeless. It doesn't look very vibrant. And especially when you take it off angles, the screen gets really dark. So basically putting these two, the Z3V gets significantly darker when looking at off angle, and I usually found it unusable when trying to look at just a little bit of an off angle, especially watching videos. It was quite terrible. But that's about all I have to say for screen quality. And now that I'm talking about videos, let me talk a little bit about the speakers. So the Z3V actually has dual front-firing speakers, and that's normally a really good thing. I've used HTC One devices before for extended periods, and they had excellent speakers. I was very impressed. But unfortunately, somebody at Sony didn't get the memo because this device, the front-facing speakers are really bad. And obviously, I can't do a test because it'll depend on what type of audio instruments you're using, but I can say that this usually was almost inaudible, even in quiet rooms, until you got to about 60% volume. So the speakers were very quiet. And then even when you got them all the way up to full volume, it still, would distort easily. And I had a hard time really listening to podcasts and stuff like that without being really close to the device. So while it's nice that they're front-facing, they're unfortunately really quiet and not very good quality speakers. Next, let's talk about the overall build quality of this device. So this has a glass front and a glass back, and when the iPhone 4 came out, that was amazing. Now that it's 5 years later, it's not really that impressive. And in fact, there's a lot of other parts about this device that really let you down. All the edges of it are in this really cheap plastic. Just very inexpensive, not very premium feeling, really sort of glossy plastic. And then besides that, there's a lot of these little flaps, which I know are there to keep it waterproof, but once again, they're not very high quality either, and they're really annoying to open and close all the time. And then probably the most concerning thing, which, let me actually show you guys this close up. There's this silver sort of looking, it kind of looks like metal, honestly, but in fact it's actually just plastic. And what's worse than even being plastic, it's not even really an integral part of the phone. It's actually just held on with adhesive. And if you see this over here, that's actually because this used to be attached to the bottom, and it just, since it was adhesive, it just kept coming up, and I kept trying to stick it back down, and eventually I just said to heck with it, and now the bottom looks kind of unsightly, and there's a lot of little things in there. It's kind of strange, but that was another tick against the build quality of this phone. Next, let's talk about performance. The Sony Xperia Z3V has a Snapdragon 801 processor and 3 gigabytes of RAM. So you'd think this device would actually fly, and it kind of does. Initially, when you're using it, especially right after you first turn on, it's very quick and it opens apps fast. The problem is that this device, it will oftentimes just cook itself. And what I mean by that is there's this portion on the top of the back near the NFC tag that will routinely get so hot to the touch that it's very uncomfortable for me to hold the device. And then once this happens, once it starts to get so hot, then it will just start really throttling itself. The clock speed will go down massively, and all of the apps will start to run extremely slow. And there's really no way that I can fix this other than just turning it off or putting it to sleep and putting it in my pocket for a while, because it's all down to how hot that processor is getting. It just does this all the time, and I've never had this problem with another device before. While I'm talking about performance, I actually just factory data reset the device, and one of the things which made me most upset about this device was just how much bloatware is installed on it, just coming straight out of the box. And I actually counted, there's a total of 64 apps. Haven't downloaded anything yet. 64 apps on the device before you actually start using it. And if I go here and click uninstall, you can see that I can uninstall a whole 2 of them. Wait, no, 3. Okay, so even if I wanted to uninstall the apps that came in preloaded, there's still a total of 61 bloatware apps that I can't do anything about that are on the device to stay, and that's just absolutely atrocious. Alright, next let's talk about camera quality. What's on the back of this device is a 20 megapixel sensor, a little less than a half-inch sensor that you get in the Icon or in the latest Samsung Galaxy S6. Now, normally what I found is even outside in bright daylight, I would have a really hard time exposing shots. And that would mean that basically if there was a dark part with trees and there was the sky, it would try to brighten up the sensor so that you could see the trees, but then the sky would just become all white and you couldn't see any of the clouds. So there was a lot of sensor blooming. There also really wasn't much dynamic range. Besides that, I have quite a few problems with the software, and let me show them to you now. We do have a camera button, and this is kind of nice because you can actually activate the camera straight from the lock screen. The problem is, though, that every time this camera app gets dumped from memory, and that's when the device overheats and it closes a lot of apps, or when you just turn it off or restart it. Whenever this app gets dumped from memory, it resets your settings. Now, you're thinking, why is that so bad? Well, it defaults to 8 megapixels because I'm on Intelligent Auto right now. And every time you want to switch back to 20 megapixels, you have to go through these steps. You have to hit this button, hit the manual mode, and then you have to click through here and choose 20.7 megapixels. And that's enough of a pain. But you also can't do HDR while you're on 20.7 megapixels. That just won't work. And then besides that, there are a lot of really, really gimmicky software features in here. Like, if I just take a look at Creative Effect, I mean, it was really fun using this once, but going back and looking through the photos that I took when I was using all those Creative Effect modes, they were some of the worst pictures I've ever taken with a phone. So that's about it for the camera. There's just, a lot of artifacting and noise on pictures. It seems like it's trying to cram too much into this small sensor, and it ultimately fails to really do a good job. And if you really like taking pictures with your phone, I really wouldn't recommend this one. But honestly, almost all the things I've talked about so far have been pretty negative, so I can end on at least one positive note. The Sony Xperia Z3V has some of the best battery life I've gotten in any mobile device. On this phone I was getting 4.5 to 5 hours of screen on time on a regular basis, which is more than I get on any of my other phones. So I can give a total thumbs up to the battery life on this device. So just to give my finishing thoughts on this phone, I really had a horrible time with it. I can't recommend it to anybody unless you really just want a waterproof phone, because that's about the only thing it has going for it. Otherwise, that's all I have to say about the phone. If you have any questions about this review, feel free to drop them in the comments section below or send me a message. Otherwise, thanks for watching this review today, and don't forget to subscribe.